Have you ever been bullied? Maybe you've inadvertently been a bully. No matter what your experience with bullying, you're going to love our guest today, Lisa Dixon Wells, who is the founder of the Dare to Care program. And this program focuses on bully prevention and mental health. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Girls Talk Healthy Aging podcast, where we dive deep into pressing health and fitness issues facing aging women. I'm Allie Kerr.
And I'm Shauna Kaminsky. And together we'll bring candid conversations, expert advice, and personal stories that will inspire and empower you on your own wellness journey.
Hey, Lisa, I'm so happy to have you on the Girls Talk Healthy Aging podcast. Welcome.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Well, we were just talking about how long we've known each other, and it's looking like about 5 decades.
Yeah. Isn't that hard? And then I look at myself and go, is that really like,
how is that possible?
50 years for sure, Shauna, we have known each other. And most of that time we've been wet.
Correct. And most of the time I couldn't see you because back when we were swimming, I was literally almost blind. So my eyesight is better now, but now our current, when I see you twice a week, we're in the pool again.
We are, but isn't it lovely?
Yeah, we're back in the pool again, Lisa. I was so happy to see you before my first hip surgery when we randomly saw each other swimming and you invited me to the Masters Swim Club.
Yeah, well, I recognized your voice. I thought,
incredible.
That's Shauna, and you need to come join us. We're a great bunch of over 40s.
Yeah.
Well, you and I are the seniors in that group.
We sure are. Yeah, but you sure don't swim like a senior.
Oh, neither do you. It's all good.
Well, having known you this long, I regret not having been in touch with you for decades in the middle, because you've been doing some incredible work with your program, Dare to Care. And I want you to tell us all about this program.
All right. Yeah. Well, thank you. First of all, thank you. I'm really proud of Dare to Care and where we're at now. And it certainly wasn't, I guess, back 25 years ago when I started Dare to Care, I really had no idea what would it become and would it still be around 25 years later. But so I started out as a teacher and school counselor in Portage La Prairie, Manitoba. All my education was here in Calgary at University of Calgary. I have a kinesiology degree and education degree and then a master's in ed psych. But my first teaching gig was in Portage La Prairie, Manitoba. And why I got there is another podcast unto itself.
Yes, I know a bit of that.
Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. But I loved it. I loved my time in Portage. It was a very high needs school. And then I became the district elementary school counselor for, at the time, it was called the Golden School Division in BC. It was one of the largest school divisions in British Columbia. And when I took that position, I thought that I was going to be overseeing all the school counselors in the Golden School Division. Well, it turned out when I arrived, I was the only school counselor in the division. And it was a rough year for sure. I had to travel, from Field, BC, almost all the way to Revelstoke, down the other way, Nicholson. I spent a lot of time in my car for sure. And this was before cell phones. Not that I would talk on my cell phone and work now, but it was a lot of driving, which left very little time for me one-on-one or group sessions in the schools. And it was during that time that I started to see really a lot of kids that were referred to me were either the perpetrators of bullying or those on the receiving end, very low self-esteem, unhappy, lonely children. I didn't know it as bullying because nobody talked about bullying in the early 90s. And by the mid-90s, research started to come out about about bullying and what that really was and the long-term impact. And I thought, that's it. I want to go back to university, do my master's in educational psychology, develop this program, and go back to a school and make it the best school ever. But while I was developing the program, I realized, no, this is something that needs to be in all schools, not just the school that I happened to be the school counselor. So I started a charitable organization, Dare to Care, back in 1999. And here we are 25 years later. It's expanded from just being a school program to a program where leaders in the area of safe sport as well. And I think I'll add too, the one thing I think that makes us unique and also is probably why we've been so successful over the years is I've always felt we need to work with all the stakeholders within school or sports. So not just the athletes or not just the students. Parents needed to know how to advocate for their children. Teachers, educators, coaches, board members needed to know what to do if reports of bullying came across their desk. So we have something for everybody.
Well, I know that there's another reason why you got, like, how bullying, it sounds weird to say, is close to your heart, but it's,
Yeah.
would you be willing to share that story? Because that was quite an endearing story.
Yeah, so I didn't realize it at the time when I was developing Dare to Care, but as I became as the program started to grow and get into schools, I very much realized that as a child, especially in junior high school, I witnessed a lot of it. I was very fortunate. I was never more than just the mean girls, having conflict with friends, that type of thing. I never really was on the receiving end of bullying in sport or in school. But I went to school with a boy all through kindergarten, right through grade 12, who lived right across the back alley from me. I never really knew him very well. He was never really in my classes until grade 8. And grade 8 is when I really started to see how people mistreated him. It was horrible, actually. It was very horrible. And I let it happen. I watched it. I felt horrible for him. Not once did I stand up for him to protect him or tell others to stop. And I think I had a strong enough voice back then that I could have made a difference, but I didn't. I was part of what we at Dare to Care call the silent majority, the good people, good caring people. We see it, but we don't know what to do, or we don't really understand what our role is. And so when I was developing Dare to Care, I think in my subconscious, I was thinking about this boy, and that really Dare to Care, our focus was on mobilizing the silent majority. If we were going to have any impact at all, we had to mobilize that 79% who see it, witness it, want to do something, just don't know what to do. So he really, and I've got to say, I haven't seen him for 2 years now, but he still lives in his childhood home, or did until 2 years ago. He never had a job. I caught up to him a few times when he would walk. I would see him every time I was coming back to my childhood home to visit my parents, and my kids knew his story as well. We would see him and we would wave, and a couple of times I walked with him and learned very much how this had impacted him. And I'll take it one step further. At our high school reunion, when we were at our 10-year high school reunion, you're all 27, 28, very mature adults at that point. And we were all in the gym of the high school, and everybody's chatting, and it was great. Music of our era was playing, and all of a sudden the music kept playing, but everyone went silent. And I remember people looking at the front doors of the gym, and in came this individual. And in hindsight, I know why we all went quiet. It wasn't that we were saying, "Oh, who is that kid?" or "Who is that guy?" I think we all collectively took a deep breath and thought, he's here. We all knew the torture he went through. And I think our silence was our discomfort in realizing, here he is coming back. We all could and should have helped him, and we didn't. And I went up to him at some point in the night. I was uncomfortable doing it, but I went up to him and I just said, I'm so sorry for the way we treated you and so happy you're here. And he basically just said I needed to come back and show everyone that you didn't break me. But the bottom line is he was very much a broken man. He never moved out of his parents' home. He became a caregiver to his parents. When his parents died just a couple of years ago, he moved into a seniors facility because he never learned. He was comfortable with older people. He never learned to, and the walking around the neighborhood was his therapy. His therapist had told him, 20, 30 years ago, when you're feeling tense, when you're feeling anxious, go for a walk. So we would see him every time we came back to my neighborhood that I grew up in. He walked and he walked and he walked. So he's really the motivator behind Dare to Care, and what keeps me motivated to 25 years later still be sharing this message. So thanks for asking about that. Like, I don't often share that story, but
the important piece of that is that good people are contributing to bullying without knowing it.
Yeah.
So maybe we could define bullying, and then let's talk a little bit more about like what the silent majority has to do with anything. So
right.
How would you define bullying?
So I would say the biggest roadblock in creating communities that just do not tolerate bullying, and don't just say they don't tolerate it, actually act on it and hold people accountable. The biggest roadblock is with everybody defining it differently. And you look at statistics out there, they're all over the place because it depends on the definition that's being used. So the universal definition of bullying really has three components to it. One, the behavior needs to be repetitive. So there needs to be a history. There needs to be a history of negative, hurtful behavior. So things like, you look at me funny today, you're a bully. Those all in some statistics that counts as bullying. It's not. That's a mean moment. I'll talk about that a little bit later. Okay. Three sort of behaviors we look at, but bullying is repetitive. There's got to be a history. It is intentional. Now, bullies will never tell you that they're intentional. They will always mask it by saying, "I was kidding, I was joking, don't be so soft, toughen up, like that's not what I meant." They'll always justify their behavior, but the intention is there. So if I was, a high school student or junior high school in one school, and I was a bully in that school, but my parents moved, so I'm now in a new school, I will work hard to become a bully at my new school, because in our society, unfortunately, there's a hidden benefit to being a bully. You get what you want when you want, and nobody's going to stop you. And I like that power. So I'm going to try in my new school. It might take me a week or two because I need to figure out who I can target and who I best leave alone. I'm looking for reaction, and it's very intentional. And that's why we call it targets of bullying. As a bully, I am actively, intentionally targeting you. We no longer say victims of bullying because that puts a lot of the onus and stigma on the individuals who are being targeted. So repetitive, intentional, and the last one is imbalance of power. And again, just like being intentional, we can't measure somebody's intention. We can't measure the imbalance of power, but it exists. In normal peer conflict, it's two people or two groups going at it. Maybe there's a miscommunication, there's a difference in opinion, they have a falling out, but it's this back and forth, equal, like a tug of war, back and forth banter. That's equal power. That is not bullying, and a very normal part of our life is to have conflict. It's healthy, actually, to have conflict. Bullying is not equal power. It's this imbalance of power. The person doing the bullying has all the power, way up here, even more power because they look around and they see that people are watching and nobody's stopping them. And some of their people, whether it's kids or parents, are actually giggling or joining in, which makes them feel even more powerful. But on the flip side, the individual being targeted has no power. Even less, because they look around and see teammates, classmates, adults watching, nobody's coming to their defense. So the three factors that need to exist: repetitive, intentional, imbalance of power.
Tell us a little bit more about, like, what can the silent majority be doing when, like yourself, for example, when you notice this individual being targeted, what could you have done?
Several things. Several things. One is either advocate for the individual, go stand by them, go support them. The other is use your voice and say stop. It's amazing how powerful those words, like you need to stop, you need to cut it out. It sounds lame. It sounds like, well, that's not going to change anything. But it has been shown over and over and over again that 90% of bullying will stop within 10 seconds when somebody steps in. Now, it may
Wow.
continue later on, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a pattern of behavior, negative behavior there. But in that moment, you will shut it down because bullies aren't used to having somebody stand up and say, cut it out. They'll try to engage you right away and say, well, it's none of your business, or, oh,
Mhm.
you're going to suck up to this person or that person. They'll try to engage you in a power struggle, but you don't. You just say stop twice or cut it out twice. Your job is done. They're either going to stop, which 90% of the time they will in the moment, or they'll continue, but at least you've acknowledged that what they're doing is wrong. And then go to the person who's being targeted and offer them support, walk away with them, go sit with them, be there, just be physically there for them. But I think bottom line is, historically, and especially women, we're afraid to confront, we're afraid to speak up. And so we see this stuff going on, and in our minds, we know we should say something, but we don't because we don't want it turning on us. We don't
Yeah.
want to be seen as, excuse my language, a bitch for speaking up. So we stay silent. And I think, and men too, and children, we all need to find our voice and know that that's the right thing to do.
We're going to interrupt this interview for just a second because we've got something we want to make sure that you know.
If you're struggling with your health, with your fitness, if you don't know where to start or you know what to do and you're not doing it, we're here for you.
And all you need to do to get our help is to reach out to Shauna and I at our email, sapodcast23@gmail.com. And we're happy to help and we will be in touch. Now back to the show.
And a bully may come across as being super confident, but the personality trait of a bully might be that they are a bully because they don't feel good about themselves.
That's actually a myth.
Is it?
Yes, it's a recently debunked myth. It was
Okay.
always assumed that people that bully do so to feel better about themselves. Therefore, they have low self-esteem, and this is just their way of getting some control. Bullying is a learned behavior, 100% learned, primarily learned at home. So it's never surprising, especially for teachers or coaches, if if they have to deal with a true bullying situation and they have to deal with the kid and the kid's parent, they see very quickly the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. The parents are quick to deny, to blame everybody else, to not take ownership for their own behavior or their child's behavior. It's very much learned. And if there's no intervention, if there's no consequences, that learned behavior just becomes part of their personality, an expectation to have power over others, and a real desire to have power over others. So the reality is, in the large majority of individuals who choose bullying behavior, they actually have a very inflated self-image. And why not? They get what they want when they want, and nobody's going to stop them. Again, it becomes part of their personality, which is why it's not surprising that, first of all, little bullies without intervention become big
Bigger
bullies
bullies.
in our communities, in our workplace, in our relationships. But the other important correlation, is that there's about a 20% chance that a true bully will have some mental health issues in adulthood, and primarily that's around a personality disorder and primarily narcissism, which makes sense, doesn't it? When you get what you want all the time, you rewrite history, you rewrite the narrative to always put you in a powerful position.
Yeah.
And masterful at denying, and masterful at not taking ownership for your own behavior.
Yeah, and the expectation is one of maybe more entitlement and
For sure.
and just getting your own way. So a lot of us might not, we might not recognize bullying. You and I had a laugh with one of our teammates who, when I asked you to be on the podcast, and, I said that bullying is a part of, even, it's a part of aging as well, because like even, women and older women such as ourselves can be targets or could be bullies. And our teammate was just flabbergasted that, what, there's bullying even with women? And yes, indeed. Yeah. So can you talk about like some of the bullying behavior that, women may be experiencing or seeing, or might be the silent majority on inadvertently?
Yeah, for sure. And it's pretty crystal clear. The tactic of choice for female women or girl bullies is social or relational bullying, which is very hard to see. It's very hard for adults to see it happening, and often more so with girls than boys. Um, female bullies can be very charming, very lovely, and trick teachers and coaches and counselors into thinking, oh, she couldn't possibly be a bully. She's so nice. She's so friendly. But master manipulators. And the tactic of choice, when I say social bullying or relational bullying, it's anything that could damage somebody's relationship or status within a group. So we've got physical bullying and verbal bullying, and we've got sexual harassment. But relational social bullying is what happens more behind people's backs. So the spreading of rumors, the gossiping, exclusion, leaving somebody out of a group, and that carries into cyberbullying as well. The spreading of rumors, the gossiping, leaving out of a group. So maybe we have a team snap chat, and we purposely leave one of our members out, and that member knows that they're not part of that. Or we have a social gathering, we just had a lovely dinner out the other night, you and I and our group. If we had intentionally left one of our swimmers out and made it clear to them that they're being left out, all of that is damaging somebody's relationship and their sense of self and sense of purpose or belonging. And one of the most basic needs we everybody has in life is that sense of belonging. So I want to add to it why the tactic of choice typically is more along the lines of social alienation, the rumors, gossip, exclusion, is when you look at historically, women and relationships are very fragile. Women, girls and women with our relationships, a bit of tongue in cheek here. Boys and men, relationships are important to them, but they're not fragile. Boys could kick each other around like footballs during the day, and at the end of the day, hey, come on over and have a pizza and beer with me. They resolve things very quickly. They confront each other, and yes, it might come to blows, but they resolve it, they package it, put it away. I wish that women could do that. I wish we could use our voice and just confront and like, Shauna, I didn't like what you said the other day, and we can talk it out. And, we might be angry at each other for a few days, but we resolve it, we apologize, we move on. Instead of doing that, because relationships are so fragile, we don't want to ruin relationships by speaking up or by speaking the truth. So instead, we go behind our friends or our cohorts' backs and spread rumors, gossip, exclude. And there's not, for a girl or a woman, there is nothing more painful than being left out of a group, because it's a direct attack on our self-worth, our confidence or self-competence. It's a direct attack on all of that. And so again, you can see why that would be the tactic of choice. It's by far the most hurtful thing, whether it's online or behind somebody's back on a club in a workplace, that just excluding them, damaging their reputation, damaging their status so that they no longer are part of that group. And unfortunately, we're masterful at it.
Yeah, and it's so funny that women tend to go behind someone's back to say something because they don't want to hurt their feelings in person. Whereas if you just had a sweaty 10-minute conversation with that person and said, look, this happened. Can we resolve it? Can we come to some resolution? And then done.
Yeah. Yes.
rather than all the undermining. And I really wanted to bring this point up that by doing so, that is a form of bullying. And a lot of us might be doing it without even knowing it.
Well, I think naturally we chatter. And not just women. We used to say girls spread rumors all the time. Boys don't. Well, they do. They do.
Yeah.
They definitely do. It's just not their tactic of choice.
Yeah.
Whereas for us, it's more intentional in that. But we do chatter a lot. We do talk about people a lot without being aware of our surroundings and who's listening and how that could come back to haunt us. And so, there is a fine line between it just being chatter, inappropriate chatter that we should be doing, and when it steps up to intentionally hurt somebody.
Yeah.
That would be the bullying. And so going back to, the types of behavior that we look at, there's mean moments, conflict, and bullying. Mean moments and conflict are a normal part of life, expected part of life. Bullying is not normal and should never be accepted or tolerated in any environment. But mean moments is something we've all had. It's usually emotionally driven. We're tired, we're hungry, we've had a bad day at work and we blast out at a loved one or honk our horn at somebody who's just trying to cut in front of us, like properly cut in, but we got to blast the horn. It's a mean moment. It's emotionally charged. It's one-sided. It's me saying something mean to you in a workout or in the grocery store. My intention is to hurt you because I'm angry. I'm just in a bad space. But give me some time. I'm going to come and apologize because it wasn't my intention in that moment. My intention was to hurt you, but it was a mean moment. It was a one-time thing. There was no history there. Conflict can last a little bit longer, but like I said earlier, there's no imbalance of power. It's just back and forth. It's very much two-sided. It can be very hurtful. It can escalate. It becomes drama when I go get my group of people and talk smack about you. You go get your group of people, talk smack about me, and it can be ugly and loud and hurtful, but still not considered bullying because there's that back and forth. Like I said earlier, though, bullying is that total imbalance of power that makes the target feel absolutely helpless to do anything.
So, can you define some of the other forms of bullying? You kind of whipped through them very quickly, and I think it's important that we bring those ones up as well.
Sure. And I think, there's sort of 4 that we would consider old school bullying that's always been around. So the physical bullying, the hitting, punching, kicking, tripping, pushing, slapping, that type of thing. But it also includes threats. It also includes taking property or destroying property that does not belong to you. So that all falls under physical. I think we're pretty aware of that. It steps over the line to criminal if there's bodily harm. So if I punch you and you trip and cut your hand open, there's glass on the ground and you cut your hand, that caused bodily harm. That now is a chargeable offense. Verbal bullying, the name calling, the teasing, having really rude nicknames for people, but basically the verbal. So the taunting, that turns into a potential criminal. So bullying is not criminal in itself. It can be. It steps over the line into criminal if the verbal insults incite, so hate speech, which increased 90% since COVID. Hate speech against typically racial groups. If it incites violence towards a racial group or religious group, incites hatred and violence, that can step into, it's called hate speech and is a criminal charge. Then we have our social forms of bullying, the rumors, the gossip, the exclusion. Again, very, very hurtful. When that could step over into an actual criminal charge is when those rumors, the gossip, creates a false image of that person. So damages their reputation within a group, or I'm trying to think of the terminology here. It just damages their status, their relationship, and causes them not to get a job, causes them not to get a scholarship, not to be kicked off a national team because of these false rumors.
Allegations, so to speak.
Yes, false allegations. Defamation of character. That's what I was looking at. So some sort of defamation of character. Sexual harassment. So any action, comment that is sexual in nature and that's unwarranted, there's no consent for it, and makes somebody feel uncomfortable in their body, in the same room as you, in that environment, makes them feel uncomfortable. So spreading, again, sexual rumors, typically around somebody's sexual orientation, their gender orientation, gender expression is typically where we see the most sexual harassment. Cornering somebody, not taking no for an answer. It steps over into criminality. No question, a crime is when through sexual harassment, there is the creation or possession or distribution of pornography without somebody's consent. And under the age of 18, there is no consent. It's child pornography. So this is where a lot of athletes, we bring it up when we're talking to athletes and students, is this feeling that, oh, I'm 16, I'm underage, I can do whatever I want because I can't be charged for it. If you are under the age of 18 and you're creating images of yourself, you're consenting to taking photos of yourself and sharing them. That is creation and distribution of child pornography. Even though you're creating it, you're under the age of 18. And I think that's very important for our kids to understand, because that's gotten out of hand, unfortunately. It really, really has in our schools with our young kids. I actually had an argument with a group of 13-year-old girls last year. I was talking about sexual harassment, and one girl put her hand up and said, "It's my body, I can do what I want." So I told her about the law, and she didn't seem to care, and her friends were nodding and supporting her. She didn't seem to care about the law, like who cares about that? But then I shared a story, which I won't go into here, but a story of a girl who did, through Snapchat, shared a couple of photos with her boyfriend, thinking that those photos would be gone. After 10 or 15 seconds. That's the beauty of Snapchat, but it's also the harm of Snapchat, is that false security that those pictures disappear. Because that boy took a screenshot, and as soon as he took a screenshot, he's now in possession of child pornography. He then shared those photos, and he's now distribution of child pornography, which is some of the harshest laws there are for under age 18, and certainly for adults. So I shared this story and how the police had said that poor girl, probably within 24 hours, her photo was in the phones of about 10,000 people. That's how quickly, and it's gone. She has no control of that. Those photos can come out to haunt you at any time. So I shared that story, the elongated version of that story, with these girls. And finally, I think a light bulb, like that, they didn't care about the law, but they did care that their photo would be out there for forever and ever. So sexual harassment, again, any unwanted comment, gesture, action that is sexual in nature without somebody's consent, steps over the line to criminality when it is anything to do with the creation, distribution of child pornography. So those are the old school bullying that still exist. And then, of course, we have cyberbullying, which you can take all of those old school forms and it's all happening online. And we always say, and everybody knows this by now, it's the most cowardly form of bullying there is, whether it's verbal, physical, sexual harassment, spreading rumors, because you're not looking at the person, you're not seeing the impact on that person's life. Pretty easy for me to spread some rumors and then go have dinner and forget about it. So, and I would say cyberbullying is our biggest issue nowadays, for sure. I mean, I'll get myself in trouble by pointing out a particular social media platform that changed its name recently, has turned into absolute trash. As an organization, we don't post anything on that social media platform anymore. It's just garbage. It's just garbage. Yeah.
Yeah. And the hiding behind your anonymity, because
Yes.
so, you can have a fake name or photo or email, and
Yeah.
that is just such a cowardly thing. So
It truly is. And yet
yeah, it's
that
the biggest
message
thing.
isn't getting out there, right? It's still
Yeah.
happening worse than ever before. And part of that makes sense. I mean, since COVID, we've all become more, well, look at what
Yeah.
a great
Online right
podcast,
now.
right? This is
Yeah.
great. Half my meetings are
Yeah.
through Zoom,
There's the
which
good
is,
side.
there's an absolute amazing side to it, but
Yeah.
it grew too fast without any stops. And I think if you've been reading the news lately, a lot of these social media platforms are under fire right
Yes.
now, with
Yes.
the country of Australia making the biggest move. And if that works, I'm hoping it takes place here in Canada and North America,
Yeah.
all in the name of protecting our children and our youth, and protecting adults too, let's face it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you talked a little bit about what the silent majority can do if and when they see bullying. But what if you are the target of a bully? What's your recourse?
So we teach skills to kids and youth. It's a mnemonic device called Ha Ha So, and each of the letters stands for a skill that they need to learn and practice and use. So H for help. We always tell kids, go ask for help, go ask for help, but kids really don't know the difference between asking for help and tattling. They confuse the two. And when you tattle, with that whiny voice, even though I'm asking for help, if I tattle, if there's a whiny voice involved, I'm not going to get the help I need. So we teach them how to ask for help. We do role modeling with them. They do little skits to learn that. So H for asking for help, A for assert yourself. And to me, assert yourself is the most important skill that we all learn. It is really about keeping it short and state the point. Don't talk about your feelings, like what you did make me sad, made me upset. It's just, Shauna, stop it. Knowing full well that you're going to come back and go, you're going to make me, or something, you're going to try to engage me in a power struggle. So I keep it short again. I say it a second time, you need to stop. Then my job is done. I either walk away or go sit down or go read. I do not comment. I do not look at you. My job is done. Assert yourself sounds rude because you're saying it twice, like, stop it. No, you need to stop it. And then your job is done. And I would say wholeheartedly that girls and women have a really tough time with asserting ourselves. And that is something we need to work on. Obviously, it's a skill for everybody, but girls in particular, and the younger they can learn to assert themselves, the better. So H for help, A for assert yourself. The next H is humor. And to be honest, we don't teach that anymore, because when you're being targeted, you have every emotion under the sun. And for us to say, oh, just be funny. Like,
Yeah.
Hey,
It
Lisa,
would
you
work
stink.
if you could.
Yep, sure do. Like, for us to do that in the heat of the moment is some people can, but most of
Yeah.
us can't. And I saw more and more kids, it came across more as sarcasm, which can lead to more bullying. So, but I can't take it out of the mnemonic device.
Because
So
we need
it
the
stays
ha-ha.
in there. Yeah.
So
The
how
next,
about humor if you can?
if you can, and I do give examples, we just don't practice it. To me,
Yeah.
we tell kids every day you need to put your tool belt of skills on. Haha, so is your tool belt of skills. And at the very front is help, assert yourself, avoid, learn when and where to avoid. There's times and places where if you're outnumbered, that's not a time to try to assert yourself. If
Yeah.
there's no adults around, you can't go ask for help. So sometimes avoiding, but that's a skill too. You need to turn and walk away without making eye contact, without rolling your eyes, without any sort of body language giving away the fact that you're angry or upset, because bullies want
A reaction.
a reaction. And if they don't get it, they get tired of you very, very quickly. So avoid and self-talk are the ones in the front of the belt. So help, assert yourself, avoid, and self-talk. Self-talk is the ability to take the mean words that people say and flip it immediately to something positive. Like, Lisa, you're ugly. I like who I am. Lisa, you suck. I'm really good at math. Lisa, everybody hates you. I have good friends. And I'm doing the thought bubble because it's self-talk. It's in
Yeah.
your head, and it needs to be immediate. And I wish I had learned this when I was a child. I really, really do. But we practice this with kids. But the thing that I've seen and with adults do is one of two things. Either they do a stall out, they don't quite flip it all the way. So, hey, Lisa, you're ugly. I'm not that ugly. And they keep the mean word in. Or their body language gives away that they're angry, like, well, at least I'm not as ugly as you. So it's an attack on the person without saying it, but your body language gives that away. And bullies are very, very smart to that, very wise to that, and pick up on it. So self-talk is just really just flipping it all the way to something positive. And we always say, if you can't think of something quickly, just the words I'm awesome is okay. We want kids and adults to get a better, bag of self-talk statements, but it really is a very, very important skill. And then the
Yeah.
other one that's in the back, along with humor, that we don't teach very much is O for own it. So haha, so the very last skill. Oh, and I can share a poster with you, Shauna, if you
Yeah, that'd be great.
to show that.
Yeah.
The for own it is with a little bit of pizzazz, you just agree with the person. So if you, Shauna, if you said something like, Lisa, everybody hates you. And I go, well, thanks for noticing. Awesome. And I walk away, it deflates the impact. It kind of leaves you going, what just happened there? The problem is with own it. Everybody's very good at it. It's just a little bit of pizzazz. But if all you ever do, and I learned this the hard way when we broke kids into groups to do some practicing, the only skill they wanted to practice was own it because it's kind of fun. It's kind of
Yeah.
like humor. The two are
Yeah.
very, very similar. Lisa, you're ugly. Yeah, I know. Lisa, you suck. Sure do. Lisa, you stink. Yep, sure do. It all just sort of comes back. It's good for the moment, but if that's all you ever do, the bully catches on very quickly. So we always say in the haha so, the humor and own it, back of your tool belt. They're good to have back there, but don't reach for them very often. So there really are some concrete skills. Number one, front and center of your tool belt, assert, assert, assert.
Yeah, and that is a difficult skill, but like you said, the more we can use our voice and teach, especially the girls, to use their voice, the less bullying there would be overall. It's just such important work that you're doing, and it's so interesting to hear this side of you because this is not what I get to hear. Well, mostly I'm talking to myself in the swim lane, trying to just keep up with you. But I really appreciate all that you're doing, and the fact that you're addressing parents and teachers, because I've learned so much from just like what can be done, and you packaged it quite succinctly with with that acronym or mnemonic phrase, whatever you call it.
Mnemonic device.
That's what
whether that's right or not. That's what I've always called it. But and thank you for saying that, Shauna. I think that there again, going back to everybody has a different definition of bullying or a different tolerance for it.
Mm-hmm.
And collectively, we just can't. We can't tolerate it for the simple fact that little bullies grow up to be big bullies if we don't call it out. And people are good. People are kind and people want to do the right thing. They just don't always know what they're supposed to do, or they're afraid of making it worse, or afraid of retaliation in this case, right? A big fear is fear of being seen as a rat or a tattler for the younger kids, and being rejected from your peer group for speaking up. And people don't want to be that whistleblower, but if we collectively do that, you know,
Yeah.
there's strength in numbers, and I think that's the real benefit to having this sort of school-wide or sport-wide education, is mobilizing everybody, not just those who are being targeted.
Yeah, and one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the podcast is, lots of our listeners are parents, aunts, big sisters, but
Yeah,
we're also people that are either being bullied or are bullying. And I like to think that our listeners are good people. I'm a good person, but I might have been inadvertently bullying someone. So just
yeah,
creating an awareness of what it is and how we can kind of collectively put a stop to it
right.
is so
Yeah.
important.
And
So
reflecting is a hard thing to do, isn't it? Like to
yeah,
take account of our own behaviors, and maybe even one thing we often say with parents is when you're driving, and let's say you're on the phone talking to somebody on the, which is illegal, but Bluetooth, so you're having
yeah,
conversation. Your kids are listening. They're listening to what you're saying, and your tolerance and how you're talking about people, and online they're seeing the photos you share. Like, we are such important models, and our kids are such sponges. It is important to reflect on occasion. Um,
yeah, yeah.
Not easy, but it's an important step. Yeah.
It's like bullying in families. And it's like,
Mm.
God, that's got to be so hard.
Well, and it's interesting because, I'd say 1 in 10 parent sessions that I do, I'll have a parent come up and say, I came here to hear and learn to help my child, but I've just figured out I'm being bullied by my husband or my spouse, or that my dad was always a bully, that there's bullying in the family, they never realized it. It had become so normalized for them.
Yeah.
Um, so it's interesting. You're not recording this, are you?
Yeah, I'm recording.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I shouldn't
Yeah,
have
no,
said that
that's
because
fine.
I was gonna give you a story. It was
Yeah.
just
I mean,
really.
I don't, it's recording, but I don't have to put it in the
Oh, you
podcast.
can. No, you can. I shouldn't have said anything. Do you want me to
Yeah.
re-say that?
Yeah. No, I can just chop it up.
Okay. Um, yeah, I think that again goes back to that education and everybody having a common language about what are we looking for, and what is bullying, what actually constitutes bullying. And I think there is an awakening sometimes, and sadly, but at least it's happening, that individuals are coming out of a session going, oh wait, like, that's my relationship, or that's how my
Yeah.
sibling has always, and we're adults now, and I'm still feeling uncomfortable with that certain sibling.
Yeah.
And so having, we talk a lot about teaching these skills to kids, but the haha, so equally important for us as adults.
But, that is so hard to break those long standing patterns of behavior. And like, this is who my brother is to me, or this is who my parent is to me.
Yeah.
So that's got to take more than, like, of course you need the
Oh,
tool belt, but probably some kind of other intervention.
I would say going to counseling and getting some more strategies and support, because there's
Yeah.
really some PTSD around that. And but I think the bottom line is acknowledging it
Yeah.
is the first step.
Recognizing.
Yeah. and
Yeah.
and and maybe from then on, maybe being able to assert yourself, or not putting yourself in that position as often as maybe you did in the past. If it's a family
Yeah.
member, do you really need to spend Christmas with them when you leave exhausted and feeling completely
Yeah.
torn down because of what's been going on for decades in that family?
Yeah.
So making some changes just to protect yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Now, if you had a wish for our listeners today, what would it be?
Well, assuming that most of your listeners are probably in the female category or identifying as female, I am going to say, use your voice. Don't be afraid to assert yourself. Use that skill, and just remember, keep it short. You don't need to go into long detail. The longer you talk and try to explain your reasoning for having someone to stop or cut it out, the more opportunity they have to engage you in a power struggle. So keep it short, simple, say stop twice or cut it out twice. Then you've done an excellent job, and you have the right to speak up for yourself and for others.
Yeah. Yeah, I would. You stole mine because I've been thinking this
Hey, I'm
whole
glad
time.
I went first.
What's my wish? And I think my other, like, to add to that would be to, gang up on a bully. Like, if you see some bullying behavior, if I say stop, but I also ask my neighbor to say, hey, can you help me? Can you also notice and say stop to this person? Because safety in numbers and
strength in numbers.
Yes, strength in numbers.
Sure.
Exactly. So thank you for enlightening us, because I think it's a really important topic. Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks for having me, Shauna.
Thanks for listening. You'll find me, Allie, on Instagram at Allie Kerr Fitness.
And you'll find me, Shauna, on Instagram at Shauna Kaminsky. Feel free to pop us a DM with questions and or feedback.
If you're enjoying the Girls Talk Healthy Aging podcast, please subscribe and share it with other health-minded women. Ratings and reviews are also much appreciated and help us get our message out to a larger audience.
Until next time, be healthy and be happy.